So Reverend Michael Niba,
Thank you.
it's an honor to be with you, Mrs Florence.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the wonderful reception.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm here for a very, very serious function. I'm here because one of our own Cameroonian-born Bishop, Bishop Feudjio, the very first African native, was appointed bishop in the United States of America. It was breaking news, and he's now in Cameroon celebrating his Thanksgiving masses. And I've taken this initiative to research about him so that we document his life so that people can learn from his parcours. And that's why I'm here today. I'm highly honored to be with you. Thanks to Father Akwa. Thank you so much, Father Maurice Akwa, for connecting and making this possible. I'm so grateful to you. I know you're listening to us. So, Reverend Niba, dear viewers, I have the honor to be with the very first English-speaking Cameroonian-born permanent deacon in the United States of America. You know, when he came to Cameroon in 2007, I was studying philosophy then in Nigeria, and I read in the LF4 Cameroonais, which is the ecclesiastical magazine of the Archdiocese of Chicago. I read it there about, I saw you, Mrs Florence, with the kids. You know, it was breaking news in the ecclesiastical post of Bamenda. We had never seen that before. So, dear viewers, I have the honor to be with the very first English-speaking Cameroonian born to be a permanent deacon in the United States of America. Before I continue with my questions on the bishop, I would like to begin with you. Tell me more about the park. Where were you born?
I was born in a village, Bawum, in Bafut.
I see.
And that was on the 20th of July, 1958. It was a Sunday.
Oh, wow.
My mother had gotten up and was preparing to go to church.
Yes.
And the high mass of at that time, that was what she used to attend. But in the course of doing that, she went into labor, and she never got to receive the Eucharist, but she received me as a Sunday gift in the house.
Wow.
That's how I was born.
Interesting. What a coincidence. That's so powerful on Sunday.
That's right.
Dies Domini Dominis. That's the day of the Lord. So, tell me more about your family background. How were your parents those days? Were they close to the church? And tell me more about how your Catholic faith.
I grew up as a Catholic.
Okay.
As I told you, I was born on a Sunday,
Yes.
and the 3rd of August,
Okay.
which was also a Sunday, that's when I was baptized.
Interesting.
My parents, Andrea Ambe,
Okay.
late. He died 4 years when I was 4 years old.
Oh, peace.
Was Catholic,
Okay.
but he became Catholic as an adult.
Okay.
My mother too became Catholic as an adult. She probably was about 18.
I see.
But I grew up. I would say I was born into a Catholic family, and I grew up in a Catholic family and in a Catholic setting.
I see.
Yes.
Mrs. Florence, tell me more about your childhood. Where were you born?
I was born in Mancon, Bamenda,
Okay.
1968.
Was you on the Sunday too?
I don't remember the day.
Okay.
That I don't remember the day, but I know I was born in a Catholic setting. I went through primary school in St. Joseph Catholic School, Big Mancon,
Okay.
and I went to St. Bede's College.
I see.
And so I've pretty much been in a Catholic setting.
Wow.
And my
Very
desire was to end up being Catholic,
Wow.
which I am today.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Before I get back to you about the permanent deacon program, I would like to continue with our Reverend Niba. Tell me more about, so you grew up primary school. Tell me more about your primary school experience.
Went to school in St. Joseph's.
Oh, where she went to?
No, St. Joseph she went to is in Mancon.
Okay.
But there is a St. Joseph in Bafut.
Oh, I see.
St. Joseph's Catholic School. It's a parish.
Okay.
The Bafut parish is a very large one. The geographical circumscription has boundaries with Mancon, Bamwi,
Okay.
and then all the way down to Benakuma,
Wow.
Bekuniam, Womb area.
Okay.
So it's a very vast area with 21 outstations.
Really large.
Yes. So the parish, or what they used to call it at the time, the main mission, that's where I went to school.
Okay.
My 7 years of primary education were there. Of course, and I finished.
Yes.
I went to secondary school in Mamfe.
Before we go to move on to Mamfe, during that 7 years in primary school, did you come in contact with some priests? How's the education then, and who supported you?
That's going to be a very long story.
I
don't know if your camera can take that.
It will. So I'm
Yes.
comparing yours to Mrs Florence, because I'd like to get your story.
At the time that I was growing up, my father died when I was 4 years old. So my mother was not remarried, and life was very difficult, and she could not be supported in her spouse's land. So we moved back to my grandmother's house. And so my grandmother was the one who was literally doing everything for me, to the point where people thought that I was the last born of my grandmother.
Interesting.
My grandmother was a devout Catholic, and whenever she went to Mass, she took me along. In the times that I would go to church, I had an interest in seeing what was happening at the altar. And Mass used to be very interesting in those days. You have the altar servers who would kneel down, then at some point you would see they sway their heads this way and this way. And so it was a curiosity of what is the priest doing.
Exactly.
And of course the priest was not facing the people, so there was always that anxiety to see what was going on there.
Okay.
And so if my grandmother went to church and did not go far enough, I was on her back, and sometimes I would actually climb to stand on her shoulders to see what was going on there. There is the point where I'm very conscious of this, where I used to come and play father in the house.
Interesting.
And when the priest said the gospel and they translated it, or he was preaching and there was translating. So I would come at home and I would play father, and I would also want people to translate. There was things that, and I would serve stones as communion for people in the house, forcing them to eat these stones, like this is communion. So I'm playing this thing of a priest.
Interesting.
There is a day where I'm walking down the path in our compound, doing Stations of the Cross, and Father Walters comes around.
Was he the parish priest then?
He was a parish priest.
From the Mill Hill?
From the Mill Hill.
Okay, Walters.
Yes.
Okay.
Father Walters comes around and he sees me walking down the route, and my mother, they're trying to stop, and he said, no, just let me watch him and see what he's doing.
Okay.
But I think that's probably how I developed an interest in the church. Later on, I would become an altar server. But before I became an altar server, I studied doctrine very hard to get the first communion.
I see.
I think in my class, we were interviewed by Father John Corkman, who was the curate of the parish at the time. And it was a very tough interview with questions, because he did not want you to memorize questions. Yes, he wanted you to know, especially the prayers. So how I succeeded was because there were 3 of us.
Yes.
And after we answered the question, then he said, talk the prayer, sorry. Oh my God, I am very sorry because I've been doing bad against you. Stop. Then he lit a cigarette and was smoking. Then after that, he came back and said, continue. So I continued. The other 2 friends did not continue.
Why?
Because they had forgotten, they lost track. So he said, you go, you failed, you passed.
So he was trying to test to see who memorized it and who knows.
Yes.
Interesting.
That's how, and then I received first communion.
Do you remember the year?
That was 1964.
Oh wow, interesting.
And
thank you.
Then at that time, then I was in school and I started to, I was too small to start serving Mass.
I see.
Because the vestments for the Mass servers, they were so long.
So long for you.
Yeah. But by 1966, I was actually serving Mass.
Okay.
And I continued onto that path. And I was a Mass server all through primary school. I think around class 4 and 5.
Yes.
I was made head of the altar servers. So I was the one assigning the altar servers who they were going to serve with. And it was a big thing for me because when you had feast days like Christmas,
Yes.
Easter, Palm Sunday, where they would say they want 12 altar servers.
Yes.
Of course, I'm one already,
Exactly.
so I have to figure out who the other 11 are.
Exactly, you decide. It was such an honor, you know, and back in those days, every child would want to serve Mass.
Yes.
And all such.
But I was not very fortunate in my school attendance because I didn't have the money
I see.
to continue. So every now and
Continue
then,
primary school.
yeah, I would go to school.
Okay.
And then they will say, okay, the first 2 weeks of grace.
Yes.
Then the next week, you pack your books, you go to school, and then they say, those who have not paid their fees, stand up. Then you stand up, they send you home. Then you go home.
Yes.
And then through some commercial selling of food products, yes, you may get about 200, 300, then you come and pay again, and then you sit in class. When that 300 is exhausted, you are sent away.
Oh. So you really went through that.
Then in 1967,
yes.
Father Kofon, Engelbert Kofon, Monsignor Engelbert Kofon now came to Baffle in 66, so in 67, he paid my school fees.
Wow.
So that year...
Why did you approach him, or he just willingly?
No, I did not show up to serve Mass on a school day because I had been driven away from school, so the next day I wasn't coming to school, so I didn't come for Mass. So he wanted to find out what happened.
Okay.
Then he found out I was driven away for school fees, so he paid my school fees.
Wow.
That year. So that year I was not sent away.
Okay. Interesting. So that's apart from him, were there other priests during that time? During you came in contact with?
He was with me all along until I was in class 6 when he left for Rome.
Okay. So what happened?
But before he left for Rome, he introduced me to Father James Sokika, Monsignor James Sokika, who is late now.
May so rest in peace.
Yes. And he took over from him.
Oh wow.
So Monsignor Sokika,
yes.
I was interacting with him, and when it came time for the common entrance,
yes.
I did not. Traditionally, you had to get pictures on your application where the acceptance slip will come back with it, which is what you will take into the examination room.
Yes.
The year before, I had managed to write the entrance and I passed.
Okay.
But I did not have money to pay for what they used to call is it the caution fee? No, not caution fee.
Or his application fee to the college?
Yes. There was some, the terminology is not there, but I couldn't afford that money.
Okay.
That was in class 6.
Oh.
So could I have had the means, I would have left for secondary school early in class 6, yes.
Oh.
So I stayed another year.
Okay.
So this year now I'm in class 7.
Yes.
Then Monsignor comes in and then helps me, took my pictures.
Oh my God.
And said, okay, these pictures cost 150 francs.
Was he a photographer?
He was doing photography as a hobby.
Oh wow, we had a camera.
Yes, in those days, to write the common entrance, because there were no photographers around.
Yes.
If you were lucky, you would have a photographer who would come to school. Otherwise, you had to go to Mancon town to go and take your passport size pictures there.
Which is very far.
So him doing it as a hobby, now he could take pictures of students in school or the children in school at a reduced cost.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I did not have the 150 francs. And he said, okay. I walked up to him and I said, I want to take this picture, but I don't have the money.
Okay. What did he say?
So how are you going to get the money? I said, I'll tell my parents. Okay. They will come and pay you later on. He wrote me a letter with the pictures, and I took it to one of my uncles, and he said he didn't have money. I came back and complained to him.
Okay.
It's all right. If you pass the common entrance,
yes, you won't pay.
You will not pay.
And you did pass?
I passed in very good grades. I passed in list A. That was very impressive for him. So I didn't pay the 150 francs.
Interesting.
Passing in list A now earned me a spot in government grammar school, Manfe.
For secondary school?
Yes.
Why Manfe?
at the time when you wrote the entrance,
Okay.
you had two choices to pick, your first choice and the second choice. And these were all mission schools.
Oh.
There were no government school. The only government school that you had was a bilingual grammar school in Yaoundé, and then Moliko, as what you call secondary schools.
Yes.
Then you had technical colleges like Ombe, which were government. Mamfe was just coming up, and nobody really knew anything about Mamfe. But on the acceptance slips for your choices, the government schools were not mentioned.
Wow.
Now, if you happen to pass in list A, then you will be interviewed to go into one of those schools.
Okay. So you were interviewed.
So when I passed in list A, I was now interviewed.
Yes.
And then my interview took place at St. Peter's Teachers Training College, which is where you have the seminary today.
Okay, St. Peter's in
Bamwe.
Oh.
Yes. They had you had the Teachers Training College and then the practicing school.
Okay.
So that was there. We went there for the interviews.
Yes.
The priority was given to those who passed in list A to be interviewed. Of course, Bishop Rogan was my first choice.
Yes.
But because I passed in list A, I had to be interviewed first.
Okay.
For the government school. So I went to the government school and to be interviewed.
Yes.
They said, no, but you have here Bishop Rogan, go to Bishop Rogan.
Okay.
So I went and I met Father Fonte.
Okay. Who was rector then?
Who was rector of Bishop Rogan.
Okay. How did you meet him? Did he come or did he?
No, he was there because all the principals of the schools were represented in the area.
Okay, I see.
Yes. He said, no, but have you been interviewed for the government school? I said, no, I went there and they asked me to come and see you. And he said, no, I cannot do that. You go. The government has to interview you first. So I went back.
Okay.
Then I realized I was going to be sent back. So in the course of this, so what is going to happen?
Exactly.
So I told a lie.
Okay.
So when the principal asked me, Mr. Akwa,
yes.
He's still alive, and he asked me, have you been interviewed in Bishop Rogan? So I told a lie. I said, yes, sir. Then he said, okay, then I can now interview.
So Elder should have sent you back.
Yes. So he asked me a few questions.
Okay.
Then I answered. He said, okay, I'm done with you.
Wow.
Now I left now to go and continue with Bishop. By the time I went there, Father Fonte had closed his station.
Oh my God.
So that's how I ended up
in Mamfe.
Now, but I did not know that I was being interviewed for Mamfe.
Okay.
It is only when the results came out, because I thought I was being interviewed for Moliko.
Okay.
And I went and looked at my name under Moliko. I did not find it.
Can you imagine?
3 weeks later, I received a letter.
Yes. Of admission.
Of acceptance.
Acceptance.
But it was coming from Mamfe. That was the first time I knew that there was a government school in Mamfe. The story here is that Mamfe was not well known at the time. So all those students who were interviewed, it was now a question of assignment.
Okay.
All right, here is the list. This list, Boya. Mm-hmm. This list, Yaoundé. This list, Mamfe. So that's how they were picking, and that's how I ended up in Mamfe.
Wow. Can you imagine? That's interesting. Mrs. Florence, did you have contact with some priests in primary school?
Oh, yes.
Can you shed some light on some of the priests that really touched your life then?
Sometimes in 1975,
okay,
that's when our father died.
Okay.
And
so
Father Joseph Bokema was in the Archbishop's house and was one of the mentors of my parents.
Okay.
And would tell my mother, if there's anything, Lucy, come and see me.
Wow.
So with that background, we grew up knowing that there was support.
From the parish?
Yes, and we had lots of priests, but Father Bokema, Joseph Bokema,
yes,
is very, very remembered in 1975. And
mid-Hill priest, right?
He was a male priest, right?
Okay.
He would counsel my mother when she's crying. My mother was 31 when my father died.
Oh, very young.
So yes, she was a very young widow.
Okay.
And most of the missionaries knew her.
Okay.
Because she used to be a cashier in CCC at the time.
Oh.
CCC is like, it was a private owned Indian firm.
Okay.
So she was a cashier and my father was one of the managers.
I see.
So they knew them very well, and Father Engelbert Kufon, they all knew them because they would buy from them and they would escort them to the car and so forth.
Okay.
So I grew up in the hands of Reverend sisters and priests.
Did you meet Monsignor Kofan? Did you know him?
Yes, I knew him as a child.
Okay, okay.
I knew him as a child. I still remember one day we went to school and I was in Bambili.
Yes.
And we were going to make an ID for one of my friends who was writing Q's entrance.
Yes.
And we ran into him. He knew me because I'm a replicant of my mom.
Okay.
He said, I know where you come from. Your mother is in the main market, right? I said, yes, Father. So right there, I knew, say, greet her for me.
Wow.
So it was just there. Since her position was not just the priest,
yes,
CPC, but the principals like Reverend Dingwan,
okay,
all of those, they knew him. They knew her very well.
Wow.
And they knew my father very well. So our store in the main market
yes,
was just at the entrance.
Wow.
After my mother seceded from the firm,
yes,
they had some businesses in the main market.
Okay.
So I grew up in a very business setting.
Wow.
So most of the clergies, most of the prominent people in Bamenda we knew.
They will always come there to do their shopping.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for that. Now we're going to the secondary school.
Before then,
okay,
there is, because you had an interest in
yes,
knowing about these priests.
Yes.
There were also, besides, and I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
There is a Reverend Sister Margaret Mary of blessed memory.
Okay.
I self-admitted myself in school.
Wow.
Because I had a longing to go to school.
Okay.
So when they had the measure like this,
yes,
and my hand couldn't reach like this,
so that is true, that happened.
Yes. So when they took my hand and put it, it couldn't reach down on the part of my ear, so I was rejected.
Oh my God.
So my aunt, who was also my babysitter,
yes,
she was, I think, she was in class standard 1.
Okay.
So when she goes to school,
yes,
and there's nobody now to babysit me, I'm hanging around.
Just playing.
Yeah, so one day I'm standing by the window in the classroom where she is, and then the children are all playing in the field.
Okay.
So the headmaster comes out and then said something in English. Of course, I'm not understanding English, but he said something and pointed to the direction where the children were playing in the field. So I took off and I was so happy running. In my mind, I knew that I had been admitted in school. So I went and joined the children.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm running and playing with them. The bell rang,
you went to class?
they all going to class, so I followed them and I went to class.
So did the teacher
I'm coming to, I'm going to class,
yes,
they are taking attendance, so they call your name, press, and you sit down. After a few days, when they call every name, I'm still standing up, so they wrote my name in the register. The Reverend Sister wrote my name in the register.
Wow, she just added you.
Yes, added me and...
Sister Margaret Meg.
Yes.
Wow.
I did not have an arm, and I did not have a book and a pencil.
Wow.
So she created a space on the dusty floor.
Oh.
When they sweep the floor and water the floor, she kept that place because that's where I was doing my writing and my arithmetic.
So you had no desk?
I had a desk, but
yes,
you have to sit on the desk. You have to have an arm board.
Exactly.
To write
which
there,
you didn't have.
Which I did not have.
See.
So she created this place on this floor.
Oh.
So when she does 1 + 1, 2 minus this, so she comes and writes the same thing on the floor. Then I come and do my answers there with my counting sticks.
Oh God.
Then she will come and put a check mark there.
Okay.
Then I used to call that check mark Nkanteso.
Which means?
This is the thing, you know how you put the hole.
Yes.
The arm of the hole, it has that hook like this.
Exactly.
And when you do the check, it has that thing. So I will count all those, that's how I was checking my progress. Then I'll go home and I will tell them I had 6 Nkantesos. That means I had 6 check marks. I had to memorize that because there's no way to transport that form.
Exactly. Oh my God.
So
What an experience.
So Sister Margaret Mary laid the foundation
Patient
for
for
me.
you.
She was so patient with me.
Oh my God.
And one day when they came auditing for school fees, she was short, and the person who made her short was me because I never paid the fees.
So what did she say? Did
So,
she ever call you?
They called up my uncle, and my uncle said, well, I never brought the child.
Good. The child
So
will not-
whoever brought him, however, if you allow him in and he passes, just like Monsignor Sopika said.
Yes.
So that term, I was the first in grade C.
Wow.
And my uncle went and paid the school fees, 75 francs.
Can you imagine? Oh my God. So you were very, very erudite and hardworking student.
And I'm very happy that in 2007,
Yes.
as a deacon, when I took the family and we went to Cameroon, we met Sister Margaret
Oh
Mary
my God.
in the bishop's house.
Can you imagine? She was so moved.
Yes.
And she remembered you.
And we had exchanges with her when I came back, and she was in her mother's house. Actually, I used to send somebody and we would correspond, and a week after my last correspondence with her, she died.
Oh.
Now, coming down to Father Kofon,
Yes.
Monsignor Kofon,
Yes, good.
he was the kind of a person who was my window
Okay.
beyond Bafut.
Wow.
He would take me, and we would, anywhere he went, like to Womb.
With that, with those
With
father's
the Volks-
cars.
Yeah, the father's car.
Oh, was it
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen?
Yes, the
Oh.
father's car was Volkswagen at
Yes.
the time. So he would drive me and would go there. We went to St. Martin's in Womb
Okay.
during Holy Week and spent a night there.
Okay.
Father Patrick Losha was in Womb at the time.
Yes.
He was visiting him,
Okay.
and that afternoon when we arrived, before we went there, I was sitting in the compound in the morning, and he came in and said and told my mother that he was going to take me to Womb.
Okay.
And
What
he
did your mother say?
My mother said yes, go. And he said get into the car. So I got into the car. Of course, I didn't have any shoes.
Oh my God.
I got into the car, and I had these trousers, these shorts
Yes.
that were torn. You had windows in the back pocket, because sometimes I used to stand in the line and children would pinch me.
Oh God. You still remember vividly?
Yeah. So he took me,
Yeah.
and I had a shirt too that was torn in the armpits. So he said, get into the car, and I got in.
Okay.
So we drove up to Mancon Town, Commercial Avenue Main Market,
Yes.
parked the car, and then as we were entering the market, he removed 200 francs
Okay.
and said, take this, let's see what we will buy in here.
He gave it to you.
Yes, so we got in. As soon as we entered the main market, we made a left turn, and then we went into that place they used to call Okrika Line.
Okay.
And we looked for it, so he picked these shorts. They priced it, I think it was something like about 50 francs or so.
Wow.
He said, okay, pay. I paid. They gave me. Then he picked the shirt. So now I still had about 110 francs left.
Okay.
So he turned around. We went to the Njanga area. He bought a big wrapping of crayfish.
Okay.
In our house, we used to eat what they call Njanja Moto Dino Cover Eye.
Oh really?
Because the crayfish was the high quality one.
Okay. So he bought that too.
Yeah, so he bought that with the change that
Exactly.
I had. Then he turned around and said, pull those pants out there and wear the other one. So I quickly pulled the other one there in all that crowd there.
Can you imagine?
And I
And
put,
were people
of course, people are standing there.
and looking at you?
Yes.
Okay.
Just put,
But it was not your problem.
no underwear. You had underwears. Underwears were luxuries.
Exactly.
So I just pulled it off and I put on my new shirt
And you trouble.
and I dumped the other one in that trash there.
Oh my God.
And we drove to Womb.
Okay.
So when I got back home the next day, my mother and grandmother, they were surprised. They said, when my grandmother came back, she said, why did you allow him go with those type of torn clothes?